Picture a small taxi ride through the streets of an Iranian city. At the end of the ride, the passenger reaches for their wallet to pay the fare. The driver waves a hand and says, quite firmly, "There is no charge." A tourist might take this literally, thank the driver, and step out for free. A local knows better. This is only the opening move of a very particular dance. The passenger insists on paying. The driver insists again that it's not necessary. This goes back and forth once, sometimes twice, before money actually changes hands. Nobody was ever going to get a free ride. That was never really the point. This is Taarof, one of the most distinctive social customs in Iranian life. And once you learn to recognize it, you start seeing it absolutely everywhere. So here's the real question. Why would a whole culture build in so much polite refusal? The answer says something surprisingly deep about respect, status, and generosity. Taarof shows up constantly in everyday hospitality, maybe most of all around food. The host offers more food. The guest politely declines, even if they're still hungry. The host offers again, more insistently this time. The guest declines once more. Only on the third offer, roughly, does the guest finally accept with real thanks. To an outsider, this can look exhausting, even a little absurd. To an Iranian, it's simply how warmth and respect get properly expressed. The ritual isn't about deception. Nobody is truly trying to trick anyone else. It's about making sure generosity is offered sincerely and accepted graciously. A too quick yes can look greedy. A too quick no can look ungrateful.
Taarof creates a small, safe space where both host and guest look thoughtful and warm.
It shows up at doorways too, in a scene that trips up almost every visitor. Two people approach a door together, and neither one wants to walk through first. Each insists the other go ahead. Both may keep insisting for a surprisingly long time. It's less about the door and more about a small, sincere show of deference. Letting someone else go first is a tiny, repeated act of respect. Even shopping can turn into a small round of Taarof between strangers. A vendor might insist you take one more item for free, almost as a gift.
The polite response is to refuse once, then let the vendor insist you accept it anyway.
None of this is really about money changing hands or objects being given away.
It's a shared performance of generosity, played out in careful, expected steps.
To understand where Taarof comes from, you have to look back through Persian history. Persian court culture, centuries ago, placed enormous value on elegant, careful speech. Status and hierarchy mattered deeply, and Taarof helped people navigate it gracefully. One scholar described the whole custom as fighting for the lower hand. In many cultures, people compete to seem important. Taarof flips that instinct around. Guests are elevated, hosts downplay themselves. Everyone insists the other deserves more. Paradoxically, that lets people of very different status treat each other as near equals. A wealthy guest and a modest host can meet, for a moment, on genuinely warm terms. Taarof isn't only about food, doors, and taxi fares either. It shapes how invitations are extended and how they're properly accepted or declined. An invitation offered once might just be politeness. A second, insistent one is often sincere. The word Taarof actually comes from Arabic, borrowed into Persian many centuries ago. In Arabic, the root simply meant to become acquainted, to get to know someone new. Persian speakers took that modest word and built something far more elaborate on top of it. Today, the word barely translates into English at all, not in one clean, tidy sentence. It's less a single custom than an entire toolkit of small, polite habits. And that toolkit shows up constantly in the exact words Iranians use every single day. Take a phrase Iranians say almost as often as hello gor bunate baram. Literally, it translates to something dramatic. May I be sacrificed for you. In practice, it just means something closer to sweetie, or I adore you. Nobody hearing it thinks about sacrifice for even a single second. Another common phrase, dastet dard nakuna, literally means may your hand not hurt. It's really just a heartfelt thank you, usually aimed at someone who cooked or helped. Even the word for I gets pulled into politeness. Chesha means simply, of course. Saying Chesham to a request is a small, respectful way of promising to do it. Some of this politeness is even built directly into Persian grammar itself. Formal Persian often uses a plural you, shoma, even when speaking to just one person. It's a small grammatical bow, built into the language before a single word of Taarof is spoken. Close friends sometimes drop it. Elders and strangers almost always earn the formal version. Nowhere is Taarof more visible than Tehran's Grand Bazaar, a market centuries old. Carpet sellers there are famous for offering tea before showing a single rug. The tea isn't really a sales trick, it's simply how a proper welcome begins. Bargaining itself follows its own Taarof-flavored rhythm, patient and almost theatrical. A seller might first insist a price barely matters, practically a gift. Everyone understands that opening line isn't literal. The real negotiation is only just beginning. Business meetings carry a smaller version of the same rhythm, courtesies well before numbers. Rushing straight to business without any of that warm-up can come across as cold. Visiting an Iranian home carries its own particular version of the ritual too. A guest offering to help clear the table will almost always be waved off. Letting a guest lift a finger can feel, to a host, like failing at hospitality. There's one particular trap seasoned visitors learn to avoid rather quickly. Praise a specific object in someone's home too warmly, and the host may offer it outright. Accept that offer, even out of politeness, and it can be surprisingly hard to give back. So seasoned guests learn to admire a room in general, warm terms instead. The custom reaches its biggest scale once a year, during the Persian New Year. Families spend days visiting relatives, one home after another, teacup after teacup. At each stop, the same gentle refusals play out again over sweets and tea. Elders hand children small gifts of money, a custom called Eidi, wrapped in the same warm insistence. A child might shyly refuse once, exactly as Taarof expects, before happily accepting. Even saying goodbye at the end of a visit turns into its own small ritual. A guest announces they should really get going. The host insists it's much too early. This can repeat 2 or 3 times before anyone actually steps through the door. By the time the goodbye finally sticks, both sides have said it properly. Foreign students learning Persian are often given lessons on Taarof specifically, not just grammar. Guidebooks for travelers frequently include their own small warning about the custom too. The advice is usually blunt. Don't be surprised if you have to insist more than once. None of this makes Iranians insincere, whatever a first-time visitor might assume. If anything, it means sincerity gets a little extra ceremony built around it. A culture that decided some moments are worth this much careful, repeated care. Learning to tell the difference takes real practice, even for people raised inside the custom. Younger, more direct generations sometimes find the whole dance a little old-fashioned. Fast-paced city life doesn't always leave room for 3 rounds of polite refusal. Still, in homes, at family gatherings, and among elders, the custom remains very much alive. It's less a rigid rulebook and more a shared language everyone quietly understands. Foreigners living in Iran often describe a specific, very common moment of confusion. Someone offers something generously. They accept the first offer immediately, taking it literally. The host is left slightly stunned, having expected the polite little dance to continue. Locals usually laugh this off warmly, chalking it up to an honest cultural gap. Most Iranians genuinely enjoy explaining Taarof to curious visitors who ask questions. It's treated less like a secret code and more like a small point of cultural pride. So step back and consider what Taarof is actually protecting underneath all the ritual. It isn't really about food fairs or doorways, however often those show up. It's about never letting generosity feel careless or hospitality feel rushed. Every offer gets a beat of genuine consideration before it's accepted. Every acceptance gets to feel earned, rather than simply assumed or expected. There's something quietly thoughtful in that small, repeated pause. In many places, quick and efficient exchanges are treated as the ideal. Taarof insists that some exchanges are worth slowing down just to get the tone right. It builds in a tiny space for both people to show real, unhurried care. You don't need Persian to practice a small version of this instinct yourself. Notice when someone offers you something. Pause, just briefly, before saying yes. Let someone else walk through the door first, every once in a while, on purpose. Offer something generously and mean it fully, even if you expect a polite decline. None of it needs to be as elaborate as a full Persian Taarof exchange. But the underlying instinct, generosity offered with real care, travels well anywhere. A culture that built an entire social custom around not seeming too eager, and around making sure everyone at the table or the doorway feels genuinely honored. Back in that taxi, the fare eventually gets paid, exactly as it always was going to be. But something small and warm happened first. Two strangers, briefly, showing each other respect. That small pause, repeated millions of times a day across the country, adds up to something real. A whole culture, quietly insisting that kindness deserves at least one polite round of refusal first. Not because anyone doubts the kindness, but because it deserves to be offered properly. Taarof asks a simple thing of everyone involved: don't rush past the moment of generosity. Slow down long enough to make sure it's felt on both sides of the exchange. A taxi fare, a second helping of food, a doorway shared between two polite strangers. Small moments, each one quietly insisting that warmth is worth a little extra care. That might be the real lesson tucked inside all that back and forth refusal. Kindness offered too quickly can feel thin. Kindness offered with patience feels like it means something. Somewhere in Iran right now, someone is offering, someone else is politely declining. And somewhere in that small, practiced pause, real warmth is quietly being exchanged.